1000 Voices in Destiny 2 has always been one of my favourite exotics, especially this season with our current Particle Deconstruction mod that brings us increased damage to fusions by up to 40%, and this thing just tears through everything. But is it the best exotic heavy weapon in the game? And well, I mean, without the PD mod, right? I'll let you guys answer that down below, but today, in this video, we're going to go over the 1k, and this is your full 1000 Voices exotic weapon review and breakdown, and is it worth using in 2022. We'll look at how the weapon performs in PvE, a brief look at PvP, the pros and cons, and how it competes against other exotic heavy weapons in relation to the grind of actually obtaining the weapon initially. And this is a new player friendly review and guide up to date for season 15 heading into season 16. Be sure to post your thoughts on this weapon down below, but before we start, this video is sponsored by Awaya. They offer cheap Destiny 2 silver on Steam. If that's something you're interested in, see the link below along with my discount code. And now guys, be sure to leave a rating and let's get into it. Now, as 1000 Voices is a heavy weapon, it's not something I have infinite ammo with, so the background gameplay here will be a Grandmaster Nightfall to give you that feel of how and when you should be using this weapon. But this is a time-stamped video, and you can view those below if you want to skip ahead to a certain topic. And while we're here, be sure to check out the full playlist of up-to-date exotic weapon reviews for 2021 and 2022 if you do enjoy these sort of videos, as I do frequently update videos to the current year of Destiny 2 to keep old weapon guides and reviews fresh for new and returning players joining us. So as always, we can't do a weapon review without finding out how to get it first. So how do you get 1000 Voices in Destiny 2 Beyond Light in 2022? And well, I guess in Witch Queen when it arrives. So to get this exotic weapon currently as of season 15, you need to complete the Last Wish raid, and there's a chance that it will drop from the final chest at the end. Now I believe that drop rate starts at around 10% and then ends at a 50% drop rate after your 20th clear, if you haven't got it by then. So it can be quite a grind to obtain it if you're fairly new. Now you don't need to complete the whole raid, and there are cheesy methods to speed things up. The best and fastest way to get 1000 Voices in 2022 is to do the final Riven encounter on each character, so 3 times, and then do the final Queen's Walk run, and you will have 3 keys to open the 3 chests, as the last main encounter will drop the keys. As of season 15, 1000 Voices has no catalyst, but if and when it eventually gets one, I'll be sure to post a video on that, so stay tuned. If you have any issues obtaining 1000 Voices in the current season that you're playing, or if any changes may massively impact this video, then do leave a comment and I'll do my best to get back to you. Now 1000 Voices is a heavy exotic solar fusion rifle that uses heavy ammo. Now don't get yourself confused with this thing being a linear fusion rifle, because it seems like it is, but it's not. It's within the fusion rifle category, so it will act like a fusion rifle, which means it will take fusion rifle mods and not linear fusion mods. But taking a look at the actual weapon here, it does come with extended barrel, liquid coils, unforeseen repercussions, where the beam superheats its target upon impact, causing delayed explosions, which is pretty lethal if you get caught in between, but we will also get a fitted stock with that. The main exotic trait though is Aramkara's Eye, where charging a weapon unleashes a giant continuous beam of death. Honestly, a pretty lethal weapon if you ask me. Now this weapon has a high impact with a maxed out range, which means that you're going to maximise that damage output regardless, with no damage fall off because of that range being so high. You can sit back and use this weapon on bosses from a distance, although just be careful not to be too far, or you might end up shooting half of the charged shot away from your target, as you want that beam on the enemy for around a second or 2, and if that enemy also moves away, it could make you lose out on some damage too. Speaking of that damage, this thing just tears through everything. I mean, even without Particle Deconstruction, you'll still do fairly good damage. Using this boss here in the usual testing loss sector, for example, it'll take you 3 shots to kill the boss with Particle Deconstruction slotted in, and 4 without it. In case you're watching this quite some time after uploading, Particle Deconstruction is or was a mod that increases fusion rifle damage by continuously hitting the same target with that fusion rifle. A stupidly overpowered mod that's exclusive to certain seasons, so it may not always be around, but there are always replacement debuffs like an Oppressive Grenade or Sundering Glare. There's always bound to be some sort of debuff mod each season in the artifact that you can use with these weapons, so I'd strongly recommend you take advantage of those mods to increase the damage of 1k Voices. 1000 Voices comes with 7 rounds in the mag, well actually 4 in the mag and 3 in reserves, but basically totaling to 7 shots. And you can slot on a fusion ammo reserve mod to bring that total to 8, giving you an extra shot. With most weapons allowing you to double slot a reserve mod for more ammo, you actually can't do this with 1000 Voices. So regardless of slotting 1 or 2 fusion ammo reserve mods, you'll be limited to a total of 8 shots, so you should just stick with 1 mod. So how does 1000 Voices perform in PvE, and how should you use this weapon? Now that's a pretty straightforward answer, because it's classed as a Boss DPS weapon, so you want to use it on exactly that, bosses. Now sure, you can use it in strikes and casual activities, but you actually want to focus on using it more towards the endgame content. Places to use this weapon would be things like a Master Nightfall, Master Empire Hunt, Gambit, Legend of Master Lost Sectors, activities that have champions or things you do solo, or even raids. But with raids, it really depends on the encounter, and some activities may have modifiers that would make it better or worse, so it will really reflect on those rather than just throwing it on and using it. Currently in Season 15, we have the Particle Deconstruction mod. This allows your fusions to deal more damage when you damage enemies with that fusion rifle, and in previous seasons we've had things like Sundering Glare to debuff enemies, along with oppressive grenades. Now while these are debuffs, they stack with buffs like Weapons of Light, so you can make your weapons even more powerful than they already are. So if you have these sort of debuff mods with your seasonal artifact, then that will definitely make 1000 Voices worth using in all types of PvE content, regardless of the difficulty. Now don't get me wrong, 1k is OP as hell with the PD mod, but it's still really good without it. Of course, if you have these sort of mods available, you'll definitely want them on, but if there are no mods that boost its base damage, then I'd still consider using it, but you'll also have to remember that there are many other heavy weapons that can deal just as much damage, if not more. And one competitor for the 1000 Voices is the Sleeper Simulant, as Sleeper can output more DPS than 1k Voices. For Season 15 though, definitely prioritise using the 1k than other exotic heavy weapons. Now in Season 15, we also have Unstoppable Fusions and Linear Fusion Rifle mods, which means we can stop unstoppable champions using 1k Voices. This makes the weapon worth using even more in those types of content where champions are present, over other good exotic heavy weapons like Anarchy or rockets and swords, as you won't need to find an alternative to stopping those champions. Now let's say for example in Season 16 we don't have a mod that increases 1k's damage, and we don't have an Unstoppable Fusion mod, then 1000 Voices is simply out of the current meta, and I wouldn't recommend using it unless you have an alternative that doesn't negatively affect you, because your main priority when it comes to endgame with champions is to make sure you can stop those champions, and then have a good source of DPS to use against them. 1k Voices with Particle Deconstruction and Unstoppable mods ticks both of those boxes. With both of them unticked, I simply would look to alternatives. It's kinda like Season 14 for example. Izanagi's was worth using because it had an anti-barrier sniper mod, then Season 15 came and we only had anti-barrier auto rifles, so you would just turn to auto rifles or Ariana's Vow. That's my personal thought though. But overall for PvE, 1k is worth using when you do have mods to benefit it, but also worth using without mods if you don't have better alternatives that work effectively regardless of mods. Now for PvP, I'm just going to say no. Now I'm not going to have any PvP gameplay here, but don't get me wrong, it can easily melt multiple players, but the issue is that the charge time to shoot is just too slow. When you're in PvP, it's all about kill time. You want to kill players as quickly as possible before they kill you. It's the reason you go for faster charge time on the Queensbreaker than the damage. If someone is about to shoot you with a sniper, or a hand cannon, or even a pulse rifle, and you're there charging with 1k Voices, you're most likely going to be dead before you can fire, unless they miss of course. For Gambit, that's kinda different. I'd use it in Gambit as a mixed PvPvE weapon to kill invaders, but also to deal damage to the primeval boss. In Gambit, when you're invading, it's slightly easier because you have the advantage. You can see the players before they can see you, so your time to kill when starting a fight can have the advantage, as you can see them first, so you start charging before they even look at you. But honestly, I'd recommend using this in Gambit, but not a Crucible. So how does 1000 Voices compete against other DPS weapons, and well, what other weapons can it actually compete against? Well, you have the Lament, Sleeper Simulant, Anarchy, and all those big DPS weapons. But you really want to judge a weapon by seasonal meta. What's currently available to us to enhance these weapons? In Season 14, grenade launchers had the Breach and Clear mod, which meant that they can weaken enemies, so Anarchy was instantly the go-to, as it was already one of the best weapons for dealing damage in the game. Then this season we have Particle Deconstruction, so 1000 Voices is the go-to, but the mod also works for Sleeper, and Sleeper has a higher DPS count than the 1k Voices, so why not just use Sleeper? Well, you can. Both are honestly just as good right now, but 1000 Voices doesn't require crit shots, so it makes it even better with the mod. Every weapon really has a pro and con, like the Lament is only good for being up close, and 1k, you can't really do that or you'll just end up killing yourself. But comparing 1k Voices to other exotic heavy weapons like Sleeper, both will perform just as good as each other with the PD mod, but without the PD mod, 1k Voices won't be able to hit crits unless you have another debuff. So my quick and simple answer to what weapon you should use is simply Sleeper Simulant, unless you have mods like the Particle Deconstruction to apply debuffs to the enemy. You also have to take in mind how these debuffs work. Before the 30th anniversary launched, Sleeper could only fire 3 shots in the mag, whereas 1k could fire 4, but the Particle Deconstruction mod takes 5 shots to hit the max damage debuff, so you'd essentially achieve the max buff quicker with 1k Voices. Overall though, 1000 Voices definitely comes in the top 5 for the best exotic heavy weapons in the game for PvE this year. Now what are the pros and cons for using 1000 Voices? For the pros, it's definitely one of the most powerful heavy weapons to use in endgame content like Nightfalls and Raids. It's strong against all bosses and champions in the game. and it's got really good range, but on the downside for the cons, it can't deal crit damage without a debuff applied to the enemy, so it requires a seasonal mod if available. The charging time is slower, which makes it less effective against players in PvP, giving you a big disadvantage, and it runs with low ammo reserve, so you will tear through that ammo quickly. You're best using this weapon in activities that you play solo or endgame content like raids. If you're running hard content with allies, having an ally run the Aeon Exotic with Sector of Insight will allow them to give you heavy ammo on every champion finisher final blow, which makes this weapon even better, as you can just fire 1 or 2 shots at the champion, have your ally finish them, and get that ammo straight back. Basically, infinite heavy ammo. So rating 1000 voices, I'll definitely put it up there to a 9 out of 10. Now the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because without the Particle Deconstruction mod, it's simply not worth using in every situation like a raid. It will still be good in things like a Nightfall, but there will be better options in raids in my opinion anyway. Overall, it's still one of the best exotic weapons in Destiny 2 to use in 2022, and I'd strongly recommend getting this weapon if you are a PvE or Gambit player that does a lot of endgame content, either solo, or you farm things like Grandmaster Nightfalls. Then definitely use this weapon. Now I'd love to hear all your thoughts on 1000 voices, so leave a comment with what you think about this weapon, and would you choose to use this over other heavy exotic weapons or not. Also let me know if you'd use this without Particle Deconstruction, because I'd love to know. So this is your 1000 voices review in 2022, and is it worth using? Next you should check out my other exotic weapon review videos for 2022 down in the playlist below. But for now, whatever you guys get up to, have a good one, and I'll see you all over in that next video. Peace out.